Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of This Is Me Trying with Emily Weaver. I'm your host, Emily, and I'm so happy to have you here. We're kind of going to be covering a bit about why this podcast, where kind of the inspiration came from, and also kind of who I am and where I come from, what I'm doing, what I'm up to, and kind of a bit of a framing for what this podcast is and what you can expect from it. On the day that I'm actually recording this podcast, I'm starting a brand new job tomorrow, and it kind of felt fitting for me to talk about who I am and everything about me and my whole life story, because I'm probably gonna have to tell every single person I meet tomorrow like 3 fun facts about myself or something like that. So I'm really hoping that this will, give me a little bit of groundwork for that tomorrow. So I guess I'll kind of start talking about the inspiration for this podcast. Over the last year, I've gotten really into watching a whole bunch of YouTubers do vlogs. And I absolutely love watching that. And, it's like my favorite content to consume. And I've also gotten really into podcasts this year. Probably over the last couple years, but specifically this year I found a couple new podcasts that I really love, and so almost every single day I'm listening to a podcast from someone I enjoy listening to. And my favorite types of podcasts are literally just people talking. Like, I don't want to learn anything from a podcast. Like sometimes I do, sometimes there are really great topics that people are talking about and I feel like I am actually learning something, but the ones that I really love the most are people who are just talking about their life. They're talking about things they've been through. And I find that that's always very exciting to hear from someone talk about that. And so this fall I was kind of thinking about, maybe wanting to start up a vlog channel. And I was like, oh, that could be really fun. I used to make like tiny vlogs on TikTok, and I was like, oh, that would be really cool to kind of make maybe more long form content. Then I kind of tried making a vlog and it was fun. I'm not going to say I'll never make a vlog in my life, but it just kind of was like, I wasn't necessarily sure that that was the avenue I wanted to go down. And then I was watching a vlog from this girl that I love, Hannah Elise, on YouTube. And she was talking about how at the top of this past year, she started a podcast. And she was like, I, didn't know anything about podcasting. I was only doing YouTube, and I was like looking for something else. And I was just kind of really inspired by that, because she kind of took like literally, nothing, and then turned it into this pretty successful podcast. And I was like, maybe that's what I want to do. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, if she can do it, why can't I do it? And I think that's a mindset that I bring into a lot of things that I consider doing, because I think there's this fear of failure that we all hold of like, oh, if it's not as good as, say, Hannah Lisa's podcast, then maybe I shouldn't do a podcast at all. Or there's this mindset of like, if it's not perfect, and it's not perfect when I put it out, and I don't have all the best gear, I don't have everything to make this happen, then I shouldn't put it out into the world. I think she was talking a lot about that too, and I, definitely have a lot of perfectionist tendencies that I hold, and so I was just kind of like, okay, maybe this is just the time that I just say fuck it and we just do it. So then immediately that week I was like, okay, great. I am going to watch every single podcast video I can on YouTube, and I'm going to figure out how people make podcasts, because I had literally no clue at all. And so I found a whole bunch of amazing videos on YouTube, and I found a whole wealth of knowledge there, and I was like, this is amazing. And so I watched a whole bunch of mic reviews, and I was like, okay, I'm going to buy my own podcast mic, and we're really gonna do this. And so I bought myself a little podcast mic. She's pretty, she's white, she's gorgeous, I love her. And it makes me so profesh when I talk into her. That's kind of how we got to be podcasting today. I think it's really exciting. I'm happy that you guys are listening. This is so cool. And I'm just like so excited to do this for this year and see how it goes. I'm hoping to upload every single week for the year, and we'll see how that goes. I guess we'll start by talking about the who of Emily Weaver. Who am I? Why do I feel like I need to be talking to a mic right now? What are my qualifications? So I guess my first qualification is that I'm a Capricorn. And I found this Allure article talking about Capricorns and what they're known for. And I feel like it describes it well, because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about Capricorns, and that Capricorns are just bossy. And I think maybe that's female Capricorns. And like, yeah, sure, we can be bossy, but I think also there's a lot of ideas around women being called bossy over just being, you know, a boss or being in a controlling atmosphere. So I think there's also a little bit more to dive into there. But this Allure article, I think, really like captures it in that they say Capricorns are dynamic individuals who express a unique balance of confidence and humanity. They are grounded, practical spirit that makes people feel comfortable in their presence. Although they're very selective about who they let into their lives, Capricorns are incredibly gracious friends who pride themselves on honesty and loyalty. One thing to note, Capricorns definitely don't sugarcoat. If a Capricorn doesn't approve of your choices or behavior, they will be sure to let you know. But the great thing about Capricorn is that they will also help you come up with solutions, action items, and practical ideas on how to improve your situation. Capricorns are doers, which means that they're all about making it happen. And I feel like that kind of gives a larger idea about Capricorn's strengths over just kind of washing over it as like, Capricorns are bossy and they don't like talking to people and they like to do their own thing, which like, sure, yeah. But I think there's a little bit of a deeper sense there. I mean, also Capricorns are earth signs, so they tend to be more grounded. And I think having a birthday in January, I feel like I've always been older than all of my friends. Like that could even be like, some of my best friends are like, almost a whole year younger than me. And so growing up at school, you know, there is kind of that, like, you are kind of a year older than your friends. You have a little bit more maturity, a little bit more understanding of what's going on. So I don't know. I think that's step one. I'm a Capricorn. Step two, mixed with a Capricorn, I'm also an eldest daughter. So that's kind of like my sun and moon. So being an eldest daughter, I have a younger brother. He's 2 years younger than me. And I feel like any trope you've seen of an eldest daughter is pretty true for me. Me and my friend, who's also named Emily, we have a lot of conversations about being eldest daughters and how that trope applies to our lives. And I think there's like this feeling of responsibility that comes with eldest daughters that, you know, you don't get as a younger sibling. My boyfriend is a younger sibling, and I think there's traits that I see in his older brother that like I relate to. Yeah, there's this sense of responsibility that you have either over your younger sibling or kind of feeling like you are an additional parent in the household. And that's not necessarily anything that my parents ever like told me I had to be. But it's kind of this like, you just happen to be older. You just happen to know more. You happen to be in this position where you are giving guidance to your siblings or feeling protective of them. Those are kind of the big ones. I'm a Capricorn and an eldest daughter, so probably annoying and probably the main character. The third thing on my list of who I am is that I'm also gay. I came out as bisexual 3 years ago now, and I feel like it's kind of a major part of my personality. I think bisexuals are funny. I think we're funnier than most people. I would never classify myself as a funny person, but I think in the context of being bisexual, I am funny. I think there's just so much of like bi culture that most people don't know about because it's like you only really hear about either like lesbians or gay men, and the bisexual erasure in the middle is just kind of always there. And there's a lot of really awesome books that you can read about bisexuality and like what that is. And so I think like an awesome book that I read this past year was called Greedy. It's an awesome book, and kind of the whole point of the book is that bisexuals are labeled as greedy a lot of the time. And what that kind of means is that they're like are taking from both men and women, and they're taking up space in kind of the queer community. And so a lot of these ideas that people have around bi people that like actually aren't really true. Bi people are just kind of just trying to like, you know, live their own life, and being bisexual plays a large part in my life. And I think since coming out, it's been a really great experience to kind of meet so many other bi people and be exposed to so much queer culture. And I definitely want to do like a whole podcast episode sometime later in the year about my coming out story and what that looks like, and kind of how I interact with the queer community, even though I'm kind of in a straight passing relationship. And so what that looks like to me. And I think that's like a very exciting thing in my life that's kind of new, but also has kind of always been there for my entire life. So that's number 3. The next one is that I am a dancer and I'm also creative. And so I have been dancing my entire life. I started dancing at the age of 4 and I just like haven't stopped since. I think it's something that's been the most continuous line through my entire life. I think a lot of the ways that I function in the world are also due to the fact that I'm a dancer. I think there's so many life lessons that I've learned from so many dance teachers, and, you know, the amount of like discipline and creativity and being a team player. I think all of those things come from growing up in a dance community. I think there's nothing really like it. I think there's so many people who unfortunately grow up with really terrible dance experiences and really kind of terrible dance role models, and I'm very happy and blessed to have never really experienced that and to have always been supported by really amazing dance teachers and really amazing like people to be around that I was dancing with. And I think a lot of that all comes together in kind of like who I am today and how I work with people and kind of the approach I take when I'm either working at my job or when I'm working with other people on different creative projects. I feel like dancers work really, really hard and, you know, also have kind of that perfectionist mindset. But I think dancers just like want to get it right and they want to do really well and they have a lot of really high ambition and, you know, they're used to be on stage, they're used to performing. And I think, I don't know, maybe that's why I'm comfortable in these kind of creative settings, is because I have such a large background of like putting myself out there and just like hoping everything works out. I think another thing about me is that I am an extrovert, but I feel like I have introverted interests. I get my energy from other people. Like I love hanging out with other people. I love hanging out with my boyfriend. I love being with my family. I feel like I get a lot of energy out of that. But I feel like my interests lead more introverted. The things I would like to do with people are more introverted interests, if that makes sense. I feel like also I have anxiety, and so there's like a level of like leaving my home sometimes that like causes me a lot of anxiety, and so I feel like I've also developed a large amount of like kind of more introverted interests. But thankfully I have a lot of friends who are also kind of like me and similar and like to do the same kinds of things as me, and so it works out. We make it happen. The next thing about me is I am an arts and crafts girly till I die, and I mean this in the most literal way possible, in that I have been an arts and crafts girly like since birth, and I think I will be until I die. My mom always tells this funny story about me in kindergarten, and I like deeply remember it. So when I was in kindergarten, I worked on my PhD as a kindergartner was in arts and crafts, and I created a like life-size version of myself out of cardstock, and then I decorated her for weeks. My mom always tells a story about me working on it for like weeks and weeks and weeks. And I do actually kind of remember doing that. I remember what she looks like. She didn't look like me, in case you were wondering. She looked like a cardboard cutout of myself, which I think was pretty good for a 5-year-old. But I have just always loved arts and crafts, and that was me in kindergarten. And now at almost 23, I willingly bought like a $50 coloring book just because it had pretty teddy bears on it, and I wanted so deeply to take up coloring again. So I think that kind of shows a bit about who I am. I think the next thing on my list is that I am a new runner. I have never been a runner before. I always looked at people who ran and was like, yeah, that does not look fun at all. I have no clue why you would think that would be fun. And then in the spring of this last year, I was just kind of like, I was about to finish university, and I was just kind of like, what am I supposed to do? Like, especially I was in a dance program. And so in a dance program, like, you are active so much. You take at least 2 dance classes every single day. And then, you're probably also doing rehearsals. In addition to the creative aspects of that, you're also just getting a lot of exercise. And I was like, okay, well, once I'm at a university, I can't afford to be dancing the same level as like what I'm doing in school. Like, that's just not attainable. I can't spend like $25 every single time I want to go dance somewhere. So I was like, okay, what do I want to do then? And like, normally, like, my MO is like, I'm like a Pilates yoga kind of girl. I'm, a bit of a cardio girl, but not really. And dance has really only ever been my form of exercise I've ever done. And so I was like, okay, totally out of the blue, what if I just started running? And then immediately my TikTok feed was exclusively runners. Always. I have one thought in my mind and it's my TikTok feed immediately. And so I saw all these girls running and they were all posting about their running journeys. And I was like, maybe I could do that. And I think similar to this podcast, I was just kind of like, well, like, what's the worst thing that could happen if I decide I just want to be a runner? Like, I bought a pair of running shoes and I never used them again. Like, sure, but I probably could use a pair of running shoes regardless. So I bought the pair of running shoes. They're pink. We love them. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do a little Couch to 5K program. Did that. Ran my first race that was a 5K at the beginning of May. And ever since then, I just realized how much I love it. Like, it provides me with so much like mental clarity. It gives me so much energy. I love the way it makes me feel. And I also just love the community that I've now kind of become a part of since starting running. And I feel like now I am at a position where I can like hype my friends up and get them to start running. And I have like a couple friends who have like told me they started running because of what I was posting on Instagram about running. And I think it's just been such a cool thing to find this new super exciting hobby for me that like I just had no clue would ever be a part of my life. And so that's also a part of me. I'm running a half marathon in May, and so you will probably hear me talk about running more than you probably would have if I would have started this podcast a year ago. I'll probably tell you how much I have to run in a week if you meet me in person, because that's kind of all I'm going to be doing until May. But I hope you enjoy some of the conversations I might have on the podcast about running. But anyway, I digress. I guess I have a couple more things on my list of who I am. But another thing, I put on my list a couple of my like quote unquote retired from aspects of myself, because I feel like there are some things from like either when I was growing up or recent things I like don't do anymore that kind of give you a good idea of like who I am without me having to say anything. I retired from being a theater kid, a horse girl, and a bookstagrammer. That feels like the big three. I was involved in lots of different theater. I was like, did all of the theater courses in high school, big musical theater girly, the dancing, the singing, the acting, loved it. That was my shit. And then once high school ended, so did my theater career. But I still feel like it very much shows who I am. I guess we could also add theater and band kid. I was also a band kid in high school, and that was my main personality trait in high school. If you would have met me then, or you met me then, you would know that that was my main personality trait. Then we have horse girl. And I think there's been so many memes in the past couple of years about horse girls. And then I think all the horse girls kind of came out of the woodwork and were like, yes, that is true. And I was a horse girl until I was like 12. And I feel like that was pretty substantial. I rode horses for about 6 years. And I freaking loved a horse. And my entire bedroom growing up was indeed covered in horses. And I slept below a massive picture of a horse. Horse girl came before theater kid. So that's kind of how that trajectory showed up. And then alongside theater band kid was also bookstagrammer. If you're not familiar with the culture, this was circa 2015, 2016. This is pre-Book Talk. If you're on Book Talk, Bookstagram walked so you could run. Bookstagrammers, you know, we took pictures of books. We reviewed books on Instagram. We normally had a blog or a Goodreads. I had all the above. And I would just take pictures of books all of the time and post them on my Instagram account. And truthfully, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but like the page kind of popped off. And then I did that for a couple years, and then I kind of like fell out of reading. And so with that, I kind of fell out of Bookstagram. I think I had that account from like, I want to say like grade 9 to like grade 11, I think was kind of the time when I had that account. And then after that, I just got like super busy with, you know, being like a 17-year-old or something, and then never really looked at that account again. But it is still on Instagram if you want to go find it. It's death_by_books on Instagram, if you want to go check it out. Then we'll go to the thing that probably makes me the most me out of anything on this, maybe this list at all, is that I am a Swiftie. I'm a die for Taylor Swift Swiftie. And maybe that makes me crazy. I know that there's just so much discourse right now about being a Swiftie, but I have been a Swiftie literally since her first album, and I don't think a lot of people can say that. I was 6 years old when her first album came out, and I did get it when I was 6 years old. And I was a debut lover. I loved that album. Funnily enough, I didn't actually get Fearless because at that time, obviously, you could only listen to them on CDs. And so I didn't actually get Fearless after debut. Somehow I just didn't ever get that album. And then I got Red. And then Red absolutely changed my life. I got Red when I was in the 3rd grade, I think. And it just absolutely changed my life. I think there's nothing quite like dancing alone in your bedroom, just imagining fake scenarios to All Too Well at like 9 years old. I think there's something so special about that. So I've been a Swiftie since then. I have gone to 1989 tour. I went to the Reputation tour. I still don't have tickets to the Eras tour, but I'm working on it. I will be going. I have never said that I won't be going. It's just that I don't have tickets in my hands right now. So we'll see how that works out. But I freaking love Taylor Swift. I put her in the bio of this podcast. I am so unbelievably obsessed. I listen to her every single day. And I just feel like there's nothing really better than being a Swiftie. I think so many people when I was growing up were like, ew, you like Taylor Swift? Why don't you like this indie grunge rock music? Or like, you know, why don't you like this other pop music? And I was like, I mean, yeah, like I do. But also, like, what is wrong with liking Taylor Swift? And I think a lot of people came to that conclusion after Folklore came out, and they were like, yeah, okay, we get it. We get it. She's good. Okay, we get it. Fine. But I think for all of us who kind of got bullied in middle school for liking Taylor Swift, I think we were like, okay, but have you listened to any of her other music other than Folklore? And that's okay. If you only like Folklore, that's fine too. I understand it. I get it. But also, maybe do your homework too. That's all I'm going to say about that. That's all I'm going to say about that. Now we're going to move on to the what of Emily Weaver. When I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about what is Emily Weaver. And I think Emily Weaver can be summed up into just a couple statements. The first one is a 10 p.m. bedtime. And anyone that knows me knows that that is probably the first thing they will make a joke about when they're talking to me. I love going to bed early. It's my favorite thing ever. I don't want to go out late. If you ask me to go out and I have to leave my house after 8 to go, I'm probably not going. I'll go out after 8, but I have to leave my house after 8, I probably won't be coming. A 10 p.m. bedtime just is so unbelievably perfect to me. It's great. I get to lay in bed, I'm all cuddled up, especially in the winter, 10 p.m. The sun's been set for like 6 hours at this point. What else was I supposed to be doing? Like, come on. So I love a 10 p.m. bedtime. Second thing, this one's a little bit artsy, but a 20,000 step day on a nice first day of spring. Freaking love that. I love going on like a massive fucking walk and just walking all over the city the first day it's like nice out. I love it. I did it like in like I guess March at some point this last year. I got like 20,000 steps in a day. And I just like walked from like where I live like all the way to Liberty Village, which is not close in case you were wondering. And I just like love it. I love going on a massive fucking walk. Number 3 is deep talks, not small talk. I hate small talk. I don't want to talk about the weather with you. I'm sorry, I just don't. And so I love a deep talk. I love asking, you know, how are you doing? And then how are you like really doing? Like, what are you struggling with right now? And I like want to know, you know, I want to know what's keeping you up at night, and I want to know what's making you happy, like deeply, passionately happy. I want to know like everything there is to know. I don't want to talk about your job, and I don't want to talk about the weather. Let's find some other things to talk about. Number 4, niche hobbies. Any large level of obsession aligned with these niche hobbies. I feel like this past year, I got really into a whole bunch of different hobbies. I finished school in April, and I feel like after that just opened up a whole world of like hobbies that I'm so excited about now. So since I started finding these hobbies in April, I feel like I found very specific niche hobbies or things that I have a high level of interest in that have kind of become obsessive for me. The first thing that I am like so obsessed with right now is called diamond painting. If you follow me on Instagram or you like know me in real life, you probably have heard me talk about this because I am so deeply obsessed. It's I wouldn't say it's concerning. It's not harming anyone, so therefore not concerning. But basically, it's like a paint by number, except you have all of these tiny little diamonds, and they're like these little, like they're called drills. They're basically like these tiny little diamonds. And then the canvas itself that this painting is on is like sticky. And so then you put all the little diamonds on the sticky paper. And if you can't picture that at all, just Google diamond painting and you'll like get it. But it's like so calming and fun, and like as a type A, I feel like it just calms me down so much, and they're so like, I just love it. It's nothing is more calming than that. I also got really into coloring, and as I said before, I bought a $50 coloring book. No, it wasn't really $50, but I paid like $20 for shipping for it because I just needed it. It's from Bobby Good Art. If you know Bobby Good, you know what's up. If you know, you know. If not, again, a Google search. Go follow. And I just absolutely love her coloring books. I got the fall winter one. And then I also spent another $50 on brush tip markers because I'm obsessed. And then I feel like then there's like the next level down of that. Then whatever I'm obsessed with, I also just only watch YouTube videos of it. And so now I only watch like diamond painting videos or coloring videos or like cozy hobby videos, which again, love, love, love. Another awesome follow is Cozy K on YouTube. Love her. Her name's Kennedy. I just like absolutely love her channel, and she posts like only like cozy hobbies, cozy gaming, that kind of stuff. If you love that, you know, if you're a friend of me, you're probably a friend of her. You know, that's kind of the vibe. My last thing on my what is Emily Weaver list is I'm a hopeless romantic and a rom-com lover. I think I have always been into rom-coms, into romance novels, you know, for forever. And I feel like I try to live my life and like romanticize it like these romance novels and like these, you know, hopeless romantic characters in these movies and TV shows. And yeah, I'm very much a hopeless romantic, and, you know, I just want to be treated in my relationship like I am the characters in a rom-com movie. Now we'll get into the why of Emily Weaver. Who am I? And why am I doing this right now? Why am I here? What kind of brought me to be where I am now? I guess the first part of my why is kind of like where I grew up and how that like influenced what I do now. So I grew up in a really small town. It's called Elora, Ontario. And it's a tiny town in southern Ontario. It's kind of like big for tourism. You might know the town if you're from Ontario. I feel like growing up in a small town, you have to like kind of like make your own fun and make exciting things happen in your life. I thankfully lived in a small town that wasn't a very like sleepy small town. My friends always say that like they feel like I grew up in Stars Hollow when I talk about growing up in Elora, and they kind of equate the two to be very similar, which I would say there are definitely many, many similarities between growing up in Stars Hollow and growing up in Elora. I think the idea of like the town coming together for all of these like fun, wacky events, and that there's like, you know, these tree lighting ceremonies and like all this like kitschy cutesy stuff. I feel like that very much does happen in the town I was growing up. And so I feel like there's a lot of inspiration around you for like excitement and wonder, and I feel like it was just an absolutely amazing place to grow up, and I really, really cherish a lot of the time that I got to spend there. Thankfully, I lived in a very like creative, artsy space, and so I was always like surrounded by like music festivals or art shows, or there was lots of places I could go and take dance classes, and I think that really helped give me kind of the base of my like passions that I have now. I think really helped when I was growing up there. I also have like the most supportive family in the world, and they support all of my dreams and everything I've ever wanted to do. And I think growing up I never felt like there was like a limit, you know, like I never felt like I was limited to doing a specific thing or being a specific thing. I know there's so many parents who are so obsessed with like what their kids are going to do for school or if it's going to make them money or not. And like, here's the thing, your kid is going to go off and do whatever they're going to do. And even if they get, you know, even if they go to whatever you think the best degree is for them, that's going to make them a lot of money, like that still matters if your like kid actually goes and like makes the money, you know. Like I think people have this like false sense of reality sometimes in their parenting of like, if I tell my kid they have to go and do this and then they do this, then somehow that like makes me successful as a parent, you know, when in actuality, I think you should just allow your kids to do whatever they want to do, and they will show you who they are and what they want to do. And, you know, sometimes we mess up and sometimes we make mistakes, but I think it's better to, you know, be supportive of your child. And I think I always felt like I could do anything, and I think that was the most freeing thing. And so I ended up going and moving to Toronto when I was 18 to go and do a dance degree. I graduated from York University in the spring, and I did 4 years there, and I feel like it's been such an exciting time in my life to, you know, have just recently graduated. And I think going to school for a creative field will never be a waste of your time. Currently, I'm not performing in anything, and I don't have any interest in doing that right now, but I think coming from a background where you are an artist, I think always helps. I think we only need more artists, we only need more performers and entertainers and creatives and people who think the way that we think. And so I think that's very much embedded into like the why of me. And then I feel like, you know, right now I'm not necessarily like performing as an artist, but I feel like I'm always going to be an artist in some way, shape, or form, or like a creative, or however you would context that. There's just so much of like the creativity that I was brought up with and the energy and excitement around performing and entertaining that I feel like will always be with me and will always kind of inform what life choices I make. And I think that's all very integral to like who I am as a person. I've also jotted down some kind of mantras that I take with me in terms of like indicating like my why for like doing all of this. Is just like, some of the mantras are all in, if I can dream it, I can do it, all my dreams are possible, and I can do hard things. And I feel like all those kind of like, you know, it's this sense of like, if I can think it, I can do it, you know, like if I have the idea and I feel strongly about it, I feel passionately about it, then like, why can't I do it? And I think we just all need just a little bit more sense of self and sense of self-worth in that, like, we can do this for sure. Like, anyone can do anything they want. They just might need to gain the skills in order to do it. Like, for example, like, I want to run a half marathon this spring. Can I currently run a half marathon? No, but I have all of the tools that I need in order to do it, and I know how I can get there if I want to get there. So like, why would that not be possible for me? Or like, you know, starting a podcast, why would that not be possible for me? I have the means to buy a mic. I bought the mic. I have the means to watch a million YouTube videos on how to do this. I can do it. I know how to post things, you know, like, I think it all is really up to you. If you want to do something, you have the power to do it, and you can do it if you think you want to do it. So that's kind of my mantras for this year that I'm taking with me. And that kind of wraps up the who, what, and why of Emily Weaver. That was obviously a lot of me talking kind of about my life story and who I am, but I feel like it helps you get a better understanding of like who you're listening to and why I'm talking to you. But I just want to thank you so much for listening to this first episode. This was so fun to do, and I am really going to try to post every single Friday a new episode. And you can find me at thisismetrying_pod on Instagram, and you can also see all of my episodes linked in the link in bio there. Thank you for listening wherever you're listening, and if you can give the podcast a rating, that would be awesome. Peace and love, and I will see you next week. Bye, guys.